Santos Bhagwat to address the members of the
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sanjay, for organizing this, and thanks to all of you, especially on Sunday, for coming here on a morning, Sunday morning, normally you're off here for your time. So I won't spend too much time on niceties because I want to leave time for a discussion. As you know, I requested Sunday to see if we can have a debate on is the Lokpal bill, the proposed Lokpal bill, really the best way to combat corruption? And at a more fundamental level, is a law, another law, the best way to combat corruption? That was the question. And I want to spend a few minutes on that. I won't be too long, and I'll be very happy to take questions and answer the discussion after my talk. The point I want to address is fundamentally this. Are we looking at the right thing? Are we doing the right thing by proposing another law? Essentially, Lokpal is a law. Lokpal is a law. Is it right to propose another law to combat something like corruption? Or are we doing something wrong? Should we be doing something different? So, to give you the context, the vast majority of corruption in India today is linked to the government. This is the first point I would like to make. That most of the corruption that you see today in India, whether it is at a very high level, as in the 2G spectrum case, very high level corruption, or serial usually, or whether it is at a low level, as in someone having to pay the water supply department to get your pipe repaired, or to the electricity department to get your bill corrected. Whether it is at a low level or a high level, it is invariably linked to government. Something that the government controls, or something that it has the power to do, or something that is within the government's jurisdiction. And unless that is attacked, I don't think any law will be effective in combating corruption. So the first point is that the role of government, which is overarching, it has to be reduced. The fewer the areas in which the government interferes, the lesser the corruption. What does that mean in practice? Now, numerous studies have shown and repeatedly demonstrated that societies that are more open, where the government is small, where policies are more free, where information is more transparent, where there is liberalization has happened, it has repeatedly been shown that corruption levels have come down. I'll give you a simple example. Most of you of my age will remember that there was a time when we had to pay for a telephone connection. You had to pay someone to get a telephone line at your house. In fact, you had to even pay to have a scooter. You will remember, I remember when I was a child, people used to distribute sweets. वो मिठाई देते थे, क्योंकि हमारा स्कूटर का नंबर रखते हैं, आज वो चेतक का नंबर रखते हैं, बजाज का नंबर. This was the situation. But today, of course, as long as you have the money, you can go and buy any brand of scooter or motorcycle, and telephone lines, I don't need to tell you, you can have 10 phones today if you want, as long as you can afford it. How did that happen? The telecom sector that was a monopoly was opened up. An entirely new industry emerged, which was the mobile telephone industry. Lot of competition, privatization, and today, getting a telephone, of course, does not involve any crime. Now, you still may have other issues, but it doesn't, you don't have to pay more to get a telephone line. So, opening up of various sectors definitely has the impact of reducing corruption. And there's a more fundamental point. Why should the government, what qualifies someone who is from the civil services, what qualifies an IAS officer to run a textile company? What is his qualification or her qualification? What skills do they have to run a textile company, or to run railways, or to make, construct large dams? What expertise does the IAS have which qualifies them to run hospitals? Nothing. So why is the government in the business of running textile mills, running railways, and controlling large sectors of the economy, large parts of the economy still? Having said that, merely opening up of the economy is not enough to combat corruption. the 2G spectrum stand. Now someone might say, look, you said telecoms, you opened up liberalization, but that is where corruption is happening now in spectrum. Why did that happen? Because merely opening up of the economy will not solve anything. Unless there is a change of guard at the top, unless there is a change in political leadership, actually unless there is a change in leadership at all levels of government, things will not change. That is the second point I want to make. So you can open up the economy, you can liberalize the private sector, liberalize the public sector, privatize the of industries, but corruption will still persist if people's behavior does not change. Okay? So how do you change that? How do you change the behavior of people at the top? There are two ways to do this, two very simple ways. One is you change the people themselves. So instead of having people who are absolutely have no integrity or people who have no sense of right or wrong, no moral values, no sense of empathy, instead of having people like those, you try and get people who have some sense of what is right or wrong, some empathy, and at least have some semblance of integrity. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So you change people, that is one thing. The second, of course, is you punish bad behavior. There should be consequences. That's the only way to change behavior. Right? When a child does something wrong, we say don't do it. Then the second time the child does the same thing again, and we punish the child. So that the child realizes that this is not to be done, this is wrong. Today, there is no consequence for bad behavior. There are no repercussions. It is like you commit a crime and there is no punishment. It is actually like this.
Use the fruits.
Sorry?
And then you use the fruits of it.
Correct.
These are the fruits.
Indeed. And why is that the situation? Why are there no consequences to bad behavior, to corrupt practice, to unethical behavior? Two reasons. Again, very simple reasons. The investigating authority has been thoroughly compromised, which is the CBI. Thoroughly compromised, thoroughly politicized. So your investigating agencies are compromised. The second reason, which all of you will immediately agree and identify with, that this bad behavior does not get punished. The second reason is because our judicial system has broken down. So today, even in the Supreme Court, which all of you would know, even in the Supreme Court, a special leave petition takes on an average 8 years to come for the first hearing. So there is no hope today for speedy justice, especially for people who are commoners, normal. Because there is no process for redressal, because the judicial system is leaking, because of the backlog of cases, shortage of judges, numerous reasons which you all are very well aware of, and the investigating agencies themselves are compromised, there is no consequence of bad behavior. So that has to change. That is the second point I mean. So first, of course, you open up vast areas of the economy, you bring transparency, you bring private companies into those areas. Second, you try and improve judicial reform. I think is one thing which people always miss. To combat corruption, you have to start at judicial reform. Punish people for their behavior, but that punishment will only happen if the judicial system is reformed. There is speedy disposal of cases. And exemplary punishment. Exemplary. People have to be an example of certain people. That's why others will understand that this kind of serious consequences. And of course, the investigating agencies have to be depoliticized. Which brings me to the last one, which is how to change people at the top, the leadership. But that's where the fundamental problem lies. Unless you have people of integrity, of commitment who behave ethically, unless you have people like those in power, nothing will change. Now, if you think about it, why is it almost impossible for any one of you to get elected? If you think about this, the answer is very obvious, even a school child will know. Because you are not corrupt. You cannot afford to spend crores and crores in election. You are not a crook. You are not a thug. You cannot beat up people. You are not a criminal. So there is no chance of someone like you, who is very well qualified, very well educated, absolute integrity, never done anything wrong, have want to serve the country, there is no chance of you getting elected. Why? Because of our activities. Now think about this. I don't know what was the money that was spent in Cuttack during the parliament elections or assembly elections, but I am certain that it is in crores of rupees. At least. Must be, no doubt.
I think the reason Mayawati is telling me you come and fight elections.
Right. That is right.
Money power and muscle power.
Money and muscle power. Now, any student, even a school-going child or any student of economics or business or most normal people will say, if you spend money, you expect to get it back.
Yes.
You either get something for it or you expect to get it back.
Yes.
So why are people spending these crores and crores in elections? Because they expect to get many times more back. How do they expect to get many times more back? It's very simple. Which goes back to the first point. The reason today an MP in an election, contesting an election, can afford to spend say 2 crores or 5 crores is because they expect to get back at least 10 crores. Minimum. How do they get 10 crores back? Very simple. Contracts, tenders, right? Number of avenues. How do these avenues, why do they have so much power? Why should an MP or why should a government department decide on a tender or a contract? Why should they decide on education, health? Every MP today has a trust running a college. And as all of you know, education is big business. Right? But if you try to open a school, you know the loopholes you have to jump through. The loops you have to jump through. Numerous licenses, numerous permits. In Delhi, on an average, it takes 84 different permissions to open a school. 84 to open a school. And on an average, it will take 7 years. Now imagine the state of education, and that's how the system is. But of course, if you are an MP, you can open a school tomorrow, no problem. No question. So you have to reduce the powers that are inherent in the government to reduce the scope for money making. Because once you reduce the scope for money making, people will not spend so much. So that was the first point. But in here, in case of spending, the one way to attack that is to mandate state funding of election expenditure.
Yes.
Okay, that's the third point. And I believe that with these
Electoral reforms.
Electoral reforms,
Yes.
absolutely, electoral reforms. And so this is really the package I believe that needs to be pushed through to really attack corruption, to really undercut it at its roots.
Where is the root?
Okay, open up the economy, improve the judicial system so there is a process for normal citizens to complain and to get some justice. And third, electoral reforms, state funding of elections, and try and get people of integrity into politics and support them. And I would just like to end my brief talk with a very hurried and very quick mention of what I spend my time on. As some of you asked me before where I spend my time, I spend half my time in India in political activism. I am trying to get good people into active politics. That is my focus of activities these days. I am myself directly involved in active politics. At some point I hope to stand up for elections, but of course I don't have 5 crores, 10 crores. So we need to work on these electoral reforms and things like that. But I conclude by saying that merely having another law, and someone described Lokpal as a white elephant, I would actually go one step further. I would say not only it may be a white elephant, it will also be a dangerous elephant.
Yes.
You know why it is dangerous? Because it will paralyze decision making. If I am an honest officer, I will do nothing. Because the safest action is no action. No one can accuse me of corruption. I am not going to take any action. I am not going to take any decision. That is one risk. Of course, the cost of the bureaucracy involved in Lokpal will be in the range of hundreds of crores of rupees every year to manage a whole apparatus. Up to 30,000 people might have to be appointed at all the levels, from Lokpal to Lokal Janadhikari. So if you take all those levels, we are probably creating a huge progress. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. And to conclude, this is what I would say: to really attack corruption, remember, opening up the economy works very well. Transparency transparency, openness, privatization.
Yes.
A. B. Judicial reform. I think fundamental, I think critical to any kind of attack on corruption is judicial reform and depoliticization of investigating agencies such as CBC, CBI. We already have those. And the third, of course, is electoral reform, state funding of elections, mainly, but also other package of electoral reforms. So I will stop at that. I know I said many things which are very controversial, but I'm very happy to field questions and to discuss further. So I will stop at that, sir, with your permission, but very happy to take questions and continue the discussion. Thank you very much.